So starting off with something light and not so serious, who is your favorite woman here or inspiration that you look up to, excluding your family?
Excluding my family? That's not starting off light. Because I know you're here for a political project, so I feel I should choose someone political like, Margaret Thatcher, who you may have to, look up.
I know that is.
Okay. Someone like that, or Indira Gandhi, or someone along those lines, but not my family, because I was immediately going to go with my wife, who, with or without inspiration, definitely the most tolerant human being on the planet. Man, that's a tough one.
Some people have been doing, Wonder Woman, or, some people like that. It could be something, it doesn't have to be really serious.
It's not even, that's a fictional character.
That is true.
So, I don't know. Ooh, I liked her.
Yeah.
She's a good one. That would have been a good one to choose and pretend that I thought it up myself. Mostly because very intellectual, but wide variety of stuff like national security. But at the same time, she was considered for to be the chairman of the NFL and replace what's his face, Commissioner Goodell.
Mm-hmm.
So she,
football playoffs, she's on the selection.
yeah, is she?
Yeah.
So she's very knowledgeable in a well-rounded, list of things. So yeah, Condoleezza Rice, she would be a really good one. And I suppose since it's the election season, I honestly, and this has absolutely nothing to do with election results whatsoever, but it would not be Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll just give my 2 cents worth, not knowing what your other 48 questions are, but everybody wants to speculate about why he won and she didn't, and middle America and all this kind of stuff. But I think people are truly ignoring the fact that in at least 2 different arenas, if not 3, she flat out broke the law. And whether the FBI wants to prosecute or not, and I think most Americans, male, female, middle America, coastal, whatever you want to call it, I think they see that kind of stuff and go, huh, I don't know. I think that's why she wouldn't be on my list, just from a kind of organized crime kind of way, I suppose. But anyway, continue.
Before college, what career did you have in mind?
Before college, med school and some form of doctoring would have been on my list. I actually went through some programs in high school that would have led in that direction, including the Boy Scouts Explorer program that's career-based. I got to do some doctor stuff, following people around, got to go to different hospitals and watch stuff, way more stuff than they let you do now on the same program, because it was much more, they let you see more stuff. I guess there was less HIPAA or something. I don't know the answer to that part, but I know kids who go through it now and they're very disappointed. Went to college, was going to majored in chemistry for a while. As a lot of people, I don't know what, 33%, 40% of college kids change their major. Realizing that I really just, chemistry's not for me. I could still do it. And I thought I was, at the time, again, grandiose dreams of biochemistry, because it would lend itself to the doctoring and the chemistry and things I liked. Ultimately, I now teach school.
And then, did you feel confident in your academic college career? What obstacles or situations did you experience?
The only real obstacle in my college experience, all 6 or 7 years through master's degree, was my own poor work ethic. I am a perfect example of the phrase "your own worst enemy," in that, not going to class sometimes, not doing the assignment to the greatest degree that you can do. And that probably started in high school. And then when I got to college, even when I wanted to do some of the work, I didn't have any real study skills, because high school was so easy that you coast. So remember that young lady when you get back to presentation. That it's just one of those things where it's like, but I had every opportunity provided to me. I mean, I did pay my own way through school. But back then it was so cheap. I did it serving, waiting tables.
Wow.
And U of L was $600 to $800 a semester somewhere, and it was the 80s. Hush.
So nice.
Yeah, I know. Because now I have my own 17-year-old who's a junior, and I'm going, what do you mean Murray State's $15,000 a year for tuition? I'm like, are you kidding me?
Mine's gonna be like $35,000.
See, it's like, wow. So no, I'm familiar, but I'm saying back then you could wait tables, and I did. That's my youngest freshman at Atherton there. Paid my own way, pretty comfortable. My parents, who ultimately did move to a different house down south, and my dad retired, left me the house up here, so I didn't have to worry about paying rent or paying dorm fees or any of that kind of stuff. I suppose that would be one thing I missed, just for anyone who's listening on your podcast, because even my own children, even if they go here locally, they will live on campus. That is definitely something. I was another example of that commuter college that they used to call U of L that they've been trying to get away from, and I would probably advise anyone to do that because I didn't really get the full experience. But no, you're asking what impediments? No, just pretty much me. And really not focusing on what was important at the time. Ultimately, I had to do some finagling to get into teacher school because my grades weren't necessarily high enough at the time. But then grad school, everything went great, grades great, everything, because what? Oh, wait, I'm grown up and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's kind of where it finished up.
Okay. And then what ratio of males to females were in your college courses? Did you feel like both genders were equally represented in the classes that you took?
Oh, yes. Oh, very much so. I mean, I'm having to go back. I would have to say because I was taking teacher courses, in a lot of cases, there were way more females than males. Yeah. So, especially on a grad level. Probably even not as bad as if I had been elementary. The fact that I did high school kept it maybe 60% female, 40% male. As I understand it, in the elementary levels, it's more like 90-10, those kind of things. So, but my general ed classes, again, U of L, no, I think everything was pretty well 50-50.
How do you think your professors would have answered this question? What do you think about James or Mr. Peden?
You could go with underachiever, very Eddie Haskell-like. Do you know who that is? Okay, look it up. And actually, I'll tell you where to look. Go pull up a YouTube video of Leave It to Beaver.
Okay. Oh, I've heard of that before.
Yes. And watch it, and then you'll figure out who Eddie Haskell is and why I said that. Because I enjoyed talking to my professors and exchanging ideas like I was smart. I did not still, again, like going home and writing, typing. And I was right on the edge just to kind of, again, be the antique in the room, even though I'm not even 50 yet. But truly, when I went through school, we didn't even have the word processing computers. By the time I graduated in the early 90s, we really, except for a few classes, you weren't even emailing papers in to college professors like you are now, where everything's online. So you had to make the effort to write well. Spell check, I don't even know it had been invented, in the form that it's in now that we all take for granted, those kind of things. So it did require some effort, and I didn't put a whole lot of it out there for a long time until I realized it's time to grow up and move on and get a job and so on.
Did you have female professors?
No, not many. A few. Political science. I had a Middle Eastern political science class. She was female. I liked her a lot. Let's see. So I took 3 classes in Middle Eastern politics and history, all men. Newton and Tyler and Spears were the big 3 that I took over and over. I know there were women in the department, but I didn't take any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Harrison still, I think, teaches U.S. in the 60s, which is a really cool course. Even my teacher classes were two men, most of them, and they taught a program out here at Fairdale High School
Mm-hmm.
that I went there, Dr. Fischetti and Dr. Rono, and then Dr. Morgan, who did the economic side of things back on campus. Wow, I really didn't have that many female professors that I could, at least none that I took more than once. I mean, my couple of PE teachers, I know they were female, racquetball, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I had a few, but I couldn't even tell you their names now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, and the ones that even the men, but I mean, to make it not, I don't even remember all of my male professors, except for the ones I took more than once, because you'll find that out when you get to college next year. There are going to be professors, you'll take everything they offer, because you get good grades, you have a good rapport, you know what they want, and you'll just keep taking them over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And that's the ones I do remember. Like I said, as a history major and a history teacher, you know, I even after graduation and getting a job would call them up and go, hey, what do you know, resources. Mm-hmm. Dr. Coombs from the economics department in the business school, awesome resource that I then got to, he's still the consultant for a lot of the city of Louisville, number crunching. So I get to see him all the time, so even to this day, and we chit chat.
Mm-hmm. And then how would you describe your journey to your current position?
I'm sorry, one more time?
How would you describe your journey to your current position, like as a councilman?
The journey?
Mm-hmm.
I think journey's a bit extreme. I mean, I'm pretty good at telling this story. We're sitting in a firehouse for your listeners who don't know where we're being interviewed. I was on this fire department for 26 years as a volunteer. So somewhere, whenever merged government came around in the year 2000, I guess that would put me with 14 years experience, somewhere on in there. When Dr. Dakin, another one of my professors who I had for geography, when he was contracted to create the map, and I'm teaching school, and I'm interested in politics and social studies and all that kind of stuff, he goes and draws a map. Well, the map for where my council district is pretty well overlaid with this fire district. Mm-hmm. Just total coincidence. A place I had lived since I was 4, I was, 3 or 4. Parents of friends still lived in their houses. My friends still lived out here. All the guys on the fire department, that kind of thing. I'm like, I could do that. Mm-hmm. And pretty much that was the decision. Took about 2 days. Asked my wife, what do you think? She said, go for it. Brought it up to the guys up here just to kind of like, would you guys help if I needed it? Those kind of, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know how serious they took or whether they thought I could win. And at that point, you go to the county clerk's office, you fill out the paperwork, and you start working. And I learned a lot. I mean, things like, you know, you really do need professionally made political pieces to hand out, and, you know, they need to be written in a certain way and all that kind of stuff. I've kind of turned that part into a very much of a learning experience, just running for office in general. But that first year, the other thing I kind of knew deep down inside, there were no incumbents because this position was brand new. I researched if anyone else was going to run out here, just because we do have a lot of existing elected officials. Back then, Irv Mays lived in the district here. Larry Clark, who's recently retired from the state legislature, could have easily said, you know, I'm tired of driving to Frankfurt. I think I'm going to run for the council office. Barbara Davis, although she did ultimately wind up in District 24, not 23, she could have run and did actually. So, point being, you know, I did my research. Ultimately, I walked and knocked 20,000 doors.
Wow.
So, yeah, it wasn't so much of a journey as much as it was a quick decision and then a learning curve of about 4 months. And then it was like, then there was an election. So we truly walked for about a year.
And then did you receive help while trying to get to this position by anyone such as like a mentor or a parent or a counselor or anyone like that?
No, I mean, and I know that a lot of the other council people who are also brand new, the answer is no, just because I've heard their stories as well. There were so many people, 200 and something people who ran for 26 seats.
Wow.
My particular race had 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans, and at 11 we were low. District 7, which is like St. Matthews and Crescent Hill and around that, they had 24.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of people, going back to what I said earlier, you check out the incumbents. Well, if there weren't any big name incumbents running, then you thought it's every man for himself kind of thing, or every woman for themselves. But I'm saying there were just tons of people out wanting these seats. Again, did my research on looking at past voter tendencies. Even though the district I'm in is 57% Democrat, 33% Republican, Mitch McConnell consistently elected and Northup consistently elected. The only real remaining Democrat regularly collecting votes out here was Larry Clark. So I knew if I could just get past the primary, I was probably going to win. And that's pretty much how it's worked, just on natural voter tendency. But I don't take anything for granted. I mean, I've had opposition. My first 2 re-election runs, I had opposition. He and I got out and worked, put up signs, knocked doors. I love talking to people and finding out what they want, what they need. You know, what am I not doing right? Feel free to call, tell me, but they don't. So meeting them on their doorstep's okay too. Those kind of things. I mean, that's part of it. I think if you don't do that as an elected official, is when you lose touch. So.
And then, are you confident in the position that you have now? Do you feel like there's fair treatment between you and the opposite sex in your current career?
I can only speak from the perspective of the Metro Council, and the answer to that is yes. Everyone is treated equally regarding sex. I mean, males and females, I think, are totally treated equally. Everyone has equal voice, equal position, equal opportunity to be in leadership, etc. You know, about the only discrepancy I really see, to be perfectly honest, is, again, the difference between urban and suburban. I think there's probably a little bit of discrepancy between Democrat and Republican, because there are more Democrats and the mayor is Democrat, but that's just politics. And we're getting ready to see the opposite side of that from the state legislature now that they've taken over both chambers of the of the state legislature, and then plus the governor's mansion. So that's not anything out of the ordinary, but strictly male-female, at least on the Metro Council, yes. Have we only had the one, or besides Barbara Shanklin, have we had another female president? So we really only have had one female president. I was just trying to think.
Now it's the one guy is really young, right?
Yes, David Yates. And then Jim King held it for a number of years, which kind of, you know, we've only had the council for 14 years, and the second president was female. And then we haven't had a female since. And to be perfectly honest, and I guess this is something that never actually makes it out into the public, I don't know that any of females have even wanted to do it. Because it's a lot of it is kind of decided behind closed doors, who's even going to run the Republicans every year, because we're never ever, you know, because that's just how it works. That's why the Speaker of the House and, you know, Paul Ryan, not Nancy Pelosi. It's just majority party chooses. So the Republicans don't even necessarily put somebody up every year, but we have a good chunk of the women. And as far as Marilyn Parker and Julie Rose Denton and so on. Angela Lee. Proportionally, I think we may be more female than the Dems. But again, I don't know of any female who's ever even started poking around or asking around, with the exception of maybe Tina Ward Pugh before she retired. So I don't know that we're denying anyone the opportunity, I guess, for leadership. No one's told me if we are, but I will say that they have equal opportunity too. You know, and the committee chairs, mostly female, best I can tell. So,
Yeah, budget, butler.
yeah, exactly. I think most of our committee chairs are women.
And then what are some of your future plans and goals in life?
Well, I only have a few more years to teach school in Jefferson County Public Schools. Most of my goals involve other people's goals, meaning I'm going to make their goals come out so that they're not in the house anymore, and I can do that typical retirement, you know, sit around the house and go to the beach when I want, and, you know, those kind of things. It's strictly from a political standpoint. I'm probably going to run for this seat one more time, and then the end of that term will coincide with my last few years of teaching, and then, you know, and probably retire from everything together, I suppose is the best way to word it. My wife, because she did take off from she teaches as well, but she took off for 8 years on child rearing. Not really leave, you actually just quit. You only get 2 years of leave, then you got to hang out. But she was gone for 8 years. She's gone from 1 year behind me toward retirement to 9 years behind me toward retirement. So she may have to work a little longer. So that'll have something to do with what my future plans are. So maybe I might run for another office while she's still working. You know, I can think as pie in the sky as running for John Yarmouth's seat for the U.S. Congress, Washington, D.C. for a couple of terms. Sounds pretty cool. The state legislature, not out of the question, but at the same time, I live in a council district already represented by a pretty good guy, Kevin Bratcher. So I wouldn't want to step on him in any way, shape, or form. So that's kind of where we are. I'm working toward retirement as a teacher, and then other things as they appear and approach, I'll consider as they come along.
Do you have any advice to your high school self and to other young adults?
I have the advice I would have for my high school self, and the advice that I would have for you as a high school self are almost they're different. My high school self would be take things a little more seriously. You know, it doesn't matter that you know the answer. Showing, and this is think of this in life, not just in math, but showing your work is actually really important in every aspect of life, not just throwing up an answer, whether you know it or not. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, if you're Sheldon and can immediately look, you know, you see how the hardships he goes through on that TV show. And that kind of goes with everyone. Just take it all seriously. You are heading toward an ultimate goal of being a self-fulfilling, self-caring, self-aware human being who ultimately you may have other people responsible for you. Now, to kids these days, my advice to you and every kid I teach and every time is just don't do anything to screw up your future now. And a lot of that comes from social media, but a lot of it comes from, you know, other activities that kids are into. And I'm just saying, when you have employers who have departments who's within their human resources, whose only job it is to look for your social media postings, to see what you've been saying since you were 14. Tell me that doesn't put a lot of pressure on a 14-year-old to not do something stupid. And so I didn't have those problems but I spent a lot of time telling them, don't post that online. Don't, you know, once it's out there, it's gone, and everybody knows it. Those kind of things. So, and it's not just social media, it's the web, it's YouTube, it's, you know, even your podcast. One day when you decide to run for office, someone is going to go back and look at every one of those just to see what opinions you had, even when you were a teenager. And then now you're 35 and running for president, and you're going, dude, I was 14. Doesn't matter. It's out there. And I know that seems unfair, but, you know, everything you're doing now is recorded by somebody. It's just kind of, so there's a whole set of advice that I don't even know where to, you know, it's hard. I guess I know where to start. You can't even end giving advice on don't mess with your future now. So.
And then I have like 5 more questions. They're pretty simple, but
No,
it's
we're
like
good.
general questions that I've asked both because I have a set of male questions and then like a set of female questions.
Okay.
They're like the same, but they're worded differently because of the gender.
Right.
But so these 5 questions are just the questions I've asked both females and males.
Okay.
So, according to Merriam-Webster, feminism is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. Do you agree with this definition? Why or why not?
You said feminism.
Mm-hmm.
That may have been, I don't know the answer to that, at least not a politically correct one, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
in that I think that the term feminism came around when there was such a disparity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that that's the best definition anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Do I believe in equality? Yeah. Do I want my daughters to have the exact same opportunities that I had? Absolutely. But at the same time, everything I do for them, and I guess even watching girls in your age bracket that are in school that aren't my kids,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see you all embracing that term, feminism,
Mm-hmm.
like you used to. I think you see high school, college, a lot of the same things that I, as a high school student, maybe it's because it's 30 years ago, but even the girls I went to high school with, again, that was their plan. I mean, it was finish high school, good college, good job. None of it involved that. Again, we'll go back and reference Leave It to Beaver, the June Cleaver vacuuming in pearls kind of thing that you'll watch. Go watch that show. That kind of thing. So, if you're asking me about does the definition should men and women be equal, and everybody should have equal opportunity to do that. Should there be equal pay for equal work? Absolutely. All of those things that are kind of in the forefront of politics, especially again with the recent election. But I'm not sure the term feminism fits that anymore.
Yeah. And then, do you consider yourself a feminist?
No. No, I'm kind of I mean, again, I work for my daughters and I work for you as a student, but am I going to be standing in a protest line, protesting the fact the president made lewd comments? Probably not. I mean, and it's not necessarily that I think any of that's appropriate. It's just that I think maybe that's another reason why I was him-hawing on the last. I think feminism has an activist component, and I'm not sure I fit that mold. And and it's not so much that I don't believe in what they believe in, but it's like I almost feel it would be disingenuous for someone who's kind of abrupt and not exactly the most polite human being sometimes, working for that kind of for those things. I may be hurting the cause as much as helping.
Do you feel like the representation of women in government is particularly low in the U.S.? Why or why not? And do you know what percentage of women make up U.S. politics?
I do not know what percentage of women make up U.S. politics in any way, shape, or form. Hang on, you pause that real quick. What'd you ask me? I forgot.
Do you know what percentage of women make up politics?
I have absolutely no idea what percentage of women make up politics worldwide, United States, or local. If you gave me a calculator, I can do the math well enough to know the percentage of the women on the Metro Council, that kind of thing. And I guess the other part of that though is how many women how many women win and lose. I will tell you that I have heard, as you sit around as an elected official, and actually this is more during election season, you sit around and some women actually have a 10% advantage over men when they're on the actual ballot, which I'm kind of going, all right, that's cool. And I'm like, why don't more women run?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So, I think they have equal opportunity, very much so. Just like, running for office is no different than voting. Just go fill out the paperwork and pay $50.
Yeah.
Or $200 if you want to run for the state, state level office. So, I think the opportunity is there. And to be honest, again, based on every statistic I've heard, that women actually have an advantage in a head-to-head matchup with a man. At least, again, they start off 10 points up, and then after that, it's pretty much issues based.
So I have some of the information about that. So 17% of women make up U.S. politics, but 51% of like the population is made up of women.
Yep.
And then Rwanda is the country that has like the most women in government. 49% of their government is made up of women.
Right.
And then
But is it an open election, or is it?
I'm not sure about that one, but 49%.
Do they make an effort to make it 50-50?
Yes,
so
they
therefore, if a guy gets elected over here, we got to make sure a woman.
I think so,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I was asking.
And then if we continue like at the same rate of women being elected into like politics and all that, it will take 500 years for women to catch up and be equally represented in Congress.
So so then I have further questions. Since you were able to find those stats,
Yeah.
how many? You have to go all the way back to primaries to find this out. How many women actually run in a primary and for particular office? I guess how many women sign up to run for office, period? Is it even close to equal?
I don't think it is. I think that a lot of women feel like they can't win, or they feel like they're.
I mean, my wife has even run for office. She was put into a special election.
I think Kentucky politics are a little more equal than a lot of other states.
Really?
So
That's surprising.
yeah, I mean it's still low, but I still think like with the Metro
but the
Council.
fact that we're more equal,
Yeah.
that's surprising.
Because I see the Metro Council and I see the Metro Council's like, yes, it's very equal. Like you can tell, like it seems like there's almost even more women in the Metro Council than men.
I haven't
or at
counted
least
in a while,
equal.
but yeah.
But yeah, so to me it looks all right.
17% of all elected offices, federal, local, or
17%
whatever.
of Congress is made up of women.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, I really would like for you to go look up in general, not general election, Democrat versus Republican, where you're down to two candidates, but all the way back to the very beginning. How many of all the candidates that signed up to run in the 2016 elections, in every election, everywhere, how many of those were women from the very beginning?
Yeah.
I would like to know that, because if it's 7%, 17%, or if it's only 8% of women sign up to run and then they wind up with 70% of the offices, seems like, again, that supports that idea that women tend to get elected if they will just run.
Yeah.
So,
And then in what ways do you think society can better motivate women or girls to actively participate in leadership roles in our society?
I don't know the answer to that, and this is where I'm gonna pull the father card with my two daughters, no sons, so I have nothing to do but focus on women.
You do. You're the only one.
I can't get them to take the initiative even now. I mean, I truly try to get them, sign up for this, do that. You know, her playing soccer, just take a shot. She won't, there are just different personalities out there, and I'm not saying a different personality between men and women, that's obvious, but there are different personalities within women where they just don't necessarily want to assert some form of leadership. And I'll even go back to soccer, and this may be, again, personality-wise. I don't know how many times I've yelled at her and other soccer players about, they'll start running to the ball, and they see each other, and they stop. And then the other team takes it. And I'm like, stop being polite, as opposed to two guys who'll knock each other out.
Yeah.
Just because, and again, that's a personality trait. I have done everything I can to try to put my kids, my daughters, in pushing them toward leadership, pushing them toward asserting themselves, etc. And they resist the whole way. So when you ask me, what do you think we need to do? Heck, I don't even know what to do within my own family to try to do that. I think it's something you're born with. I think you sitting here with me is taking you another step in that direction. When you talk to other women elected officials, hopefully you're inspired. That kind of thing. I don't know what keeps them. I don't know what keeps other women from doing that kind of stuff. I would go even within teaching. Although it's seeming to even out now, the number of women who want to be principals seems to be less than the number of men who want to be principals. And I'm not talking about getting chosen. I'm talking about actually wanting that job. It just seems to be disproportionately male.
And then,
But then the number of women, the number of people, the male or female for counselors, more women.
that's true.
So is it a nurturing thing? I mean, I don't know. I could sit here and say a whole lot of, again, something that would be labeled politically incorrect by saying there's some science behind it, but I don't know the answer.
Yeah. And then this is the last one. But if this was your project and you had to create an art piece that represents women in government, how do you think you would best represent that? Might won't be too much putting you on the spot there.
Yeah, I'm not an art guy to start with. So, it depends. Are you wanting to represent of what would be the ideal situation, or where we are now with that 17% that you were just mentioning?
Ideal.
So
Probably.
the ideal situation would be, the Rwanda example, where if you're showing a portrait of elected officials in some form or government leaders, and equal amounts of men and women, equal numbers of black and white, and equal, everything at least, or proportional to the demographics of whatever you're trying to talk about, those kind of things. You don't want women necessarily in the background, but you also don't want them in the foreground, so you've got to figure out how to do that. Is it sculpture? Is it painting, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional? If anything, going back to what I said about my own children, the ideal situation might actually be a bunch of men pushing the women forward. Just to again, try to avoid that 500-year gap you were mentioning earlier.
Well, thank you so much.